Hi everyone. So today we are going to talk about encapsulation. It's one of the core pillars of object-oriented programming. So just let's look at this example. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you guys have seen this particular capsule, right? So if you see the outer layer, it has like a capsule. This is this one, and there are a lot of small medicines inside, right? So when you consume this capsule, you are in a way consuming these small medicines as well. So that means you are consuming these medicines, but not directly, it's indirectly. You don't have access to these small medicines, like these small medicines if you see over here, but you have access to this. You can see, you can smell this particular capsule, right? So exactly the encapsulation is based on this principle itself. So in a way, you cannot access these are like variables. You cannot access these variables directly, but you can access the methods which are wrapped around these variables. So in a way, you are indirectly accessing the variables through the methods over here, which is the outer shell, right? So encapsulation is based on just two principles, which are called as like getters and setters. Very important concept, but at the same time it's very simple and straightforward as well, right? So let's take an example. I would say like we have a class human. Okay, and a human object has like what I think a name. And okay, don't worry about the syntax because it applies to everything: Java, Python, C, anything, right? So we have a variable as name and a variable as age, for example, right? So just imagine that there is someone who's trying to access my name. So they will access human dot name. And for example, they say that, okay, my name is Tom. So I want anyone to access my name because there's nothing in hiding your name, right? It's okay unless we're talking about like the PII data and all that. That's a different case. But let's say that I have no hesitation in telling my name to anyone, right? So this is fine. But when we talk about age, I have a hesitation. If someone from my family member wants to know my age, I'll tell them the real age, right? But if someone from who doesn't belong to my family, I don't want to tell them my real age. Yeah, I hesitate. For example, I hesitate, right? So I don't want to tell them my real age. So what happens is this name is a public variable. That's fine. This age, oops, sorry. This age becomes a private variable. So minus is over, private over here, and this plus is a public, right? So now what happens is, okay, human dot age, no one is able to access it, right? But this doesn't solve my problem. Why? If I made it as private, not even my family members will be able to access it, right? I want people to access my age, but in that, under certain condition, I want to say my true age or I want to say my false age. So what I will do is I will create a getter property for this, right? A getter property is nothing but a method, get underscore age. It could be named anything, it could be anything, but in a naming convention way, what we do is we do get underscore or set underscore the variable name, and each variable have its own getter and setter property. So there's one variable, we have a getter for variable 1, setter for variable 1. We have variable 2, getter for variable 2, setter for variable 2. And it's not necessary, it's on demand basis, whether you need a getter setter, you need both, you need one of them, or you don't need at all, right? But in this case, let's just say we are preparing a getter property. So get underscore age, which will return integer, right? Because this age is an integer. What it will do is it will return the age, the variable age over here, right? Now, okay, there's a problem that has been solved now. So human dot, instead of age, I will do get underscore age. But there's a problem here again. if any third person is accessing human.getAge, internally it will return my true age itself, right? So this part also fails. But now the best part about a getter or a setter method is if we have get underscore age, which returns integer, I can flexibly do anything. I'll be very flexible with the return statements, right? So if I can write an if condition, if some family member is trying to access it, I will return my age. If some non-family member is trying to access it, or the else condition, then I will return the age minus 5. So for example, if I'm 50 years old, I will tell my family, okay, I'm 50 years old. That's not a problem. But if someone from outside is trying to access my age, I would tell them, okay, I'm 45 years old, right? I don't want to tell them the real age. So this way it becomes flexible, right? So now anyone who tries to access human.getAge, they can indirectly access my age, but based on certain conditions. If a family member is asking my age, then it's a true age. Otherwise, it will be true age minus 5, which is a false age. Right? So this is one of the basic explanations, very basic explanations. There are other things as well, like if you want a setter method, and a setter method always has set age, you always send a value in it. So that is how they will be able to set the value. So this will be like self.age or this dot age in some programming language, and you will send an age over here, right? Again, the same thing. Someone wants to set your age. If it's your family member, they can set the age, but if they are not your family member, they cannot set the age. So you can do this flexibly, right? But let's not take an example of age. Maybe a pin code of your debit card, right? So if you want, so there's like a private pin, or for example, let's say if it's a public pin, right? So card dot pin is equal to 1234, right? Or print card dot pin, and they will be able to get to know your pin, right? But you don't want this to happen. So what you do is you make this as private, you create a setter property for this and a getter property for this. So get pin, what people will do is, so now instead of directly accessing ping, because it's a private variable, you cannot access it, you will do get underscore pin. And now here you can return pin based on condition. Only if that caller is your family member, you want the pin to be displayed, else you don't want the pin to be displayed. So you can say return something like sorry, no access. So in a way, you are returning the integer, like if there's a family member, else you are returning a string. So this is possible in Python. People coming from the Java background or C++, it's very strongly typed. So you can either return integer or a string, but not both. But that's not the topic over here. So I hope you understand. The same goes for the set pin as well. Set pin, I think your family members can set your pin, right? Because it's your debit card, and I think, yeah, your family members, you are allowed to set the pin. So you can do set underscore pin and then send. So card dot set underscore pin, and then your family members can send a new pin, set a new pin. So for example, 4444, right? So it will call the set pin method, set underscore pin, which takes a variable new pin. So this will set pin equal to new pin. So they will be able to replace the old pin, which was, for example, 4000 to now 4444, like 4444, right? But now the problem is anyone can set your pin. So you can have an if condition over here. Only if a family member is trying to set, do this. Otherwise, throw an exception. Sorry, you are not a family member. Right? So that is how the encapsulation works in real time examples. It's really very helpful because you cannot directly make your variables as public, but in a way you want outsiders to access your variables as well under certain conditions. So that is where getters and setters comes into picture. So now if you look at this example, you will be able to understand, like, this is a variable, these are variables, the small ones, which you cannot access directly, but you're encapsulating it with the methods like the getters and setters. So through this you are able to access these variables. So I hope you were able to understand what encapsulation is. Just go through some examples, write your own codes, and you will be able to understand very thoroughly what it is. And it's a very simple yet important concept of object oriented programming. So if you liked my video, then please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.